All right. I am here with Michael Moran, who is going to be talking about addressing sexual issues in emotionally focused therapy or EFT couples therapy. Thanks for being with me, Mike.
Oh, thank you, Rachel. It's always awesome to be with you.
Tell us a little bit about what EFT is and how it works with couples therapy.
Okay. So, in the context of just couples therapy, right? You're saying not with EFT and sex.
Well, tell us about, right, and then we'll
Okay.
go on to sex.
We'll go on to sex. Okay.
Gotta
Well,
get to know you first, Mike.
we know each other.
I just kidding.
So EFT, emotionally focused couples therapy. Firstly, EFT has now branched off. There's emotionally focused individual therapy, that's EFIT. Then there's emotionally focused couples therapy. That's what, I specialize in. And then there's also emotionally focused family therapy. But all of us sex therapists and EFTers, we're now kind of creating this model of, emotionally focused sex therapy. Let me just kind of talk a little bit about the theory of change for EFT, right? Every model has to have a theory of change in order to, create greater connection with couples. So our theory of change is change. It's an experiential model, right? Our theory of change is as you deepen vulnerability, people get stuck. People get stuck in these rigid, reactive, negative cycles. All of us do, right? But underneath the more reactive cycle are these deeper, vulnerable feelings that they don't feel safe to talk about. And so our theory of change is as you deepen, as you cultivate greater capacity in the room, in the treatment moment, you help couples drop down into their more vulnerable emotions. And that's where we do enactments and they share, right? They turn and share. And it's in that experiential moment that where couples have increased vulnerability and where they get to know their partner underneath the more reactive emotions that keep them stuck, right? Right? Does that make sense? Right?
Absolutely.
The two classic, what we see is a typical pattern is where one person is blaming, criticizing, right? They're more like the pursuer, right? You're nodding your head, you know that, right? And then one person, another partner often shuts down, withdraws, right? Goes away. And so you have to bring the withdrawer forward and you have to soften the pursuer. And in that place, that's when they can start to really have deeper experiences of each other. And that's what creates closeness.
Amazing. And do you have to work through the things that have happened in the past that got them to this point in order to get to the vulnerability?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, if you're working with infidelity, often they come in and they're just completely shut down. So, and infidelity affairs are often symptoms of deeper relationship issues. So at first you have to kind of create some safety in the room just so that they can really hear each other. And then you deepen into, okay, what's the meaning of the affair? This is just one example, right? And how do you now help deepen each partner to get to talking about and sharing and being with each other in ways that they weren't, that they lost each other, and then often someone has an affair. I'm not saying that that's the only reason people have affairs, but it's often what I see in my practice. So yes, you have to go in on the past, and that's the negative cycle that is kind of ingrained in their nervous system.
Yep.
But the key with EFT, which is so beautiful, is yes, you're looking at this negative cycle, but you're always working to help them deepen. Right? It's kind of like it is about the coffee cup that you left on the kitchen counter, but it's not at all. It's what the coffee cup represents.
Yeah.
Right?
And
Yeah.
so now tell me about how this applies, how EFT applies to sex or how that integrates.
Okay, cool. So, for me, EFT is an ideal model to address sexual challenges. When are we more vulnerable? I mean, sex, to talk about and really let our partner into our inner erotic world, for many, many, many people, that's hard to do. Yes, some couples can do it, they figure it out, but they don't land in our offices, right? The couples that land in our offices, they're stuck. And we have to get in there and help them share who they really are sexually. You have to zoom in on what's the block, right? Why is this couple, what's the block to this couple not able? Why are they not able to cultivate sexual gratification? And that's where we get into erotic blueprints. This is another, see, EFT is a wonderful, it's a roadmap to creating closeness, and it totally works with sex, right? There's so many ways in which you can apply the model to sexuality. And so as you deepen and help people connect, right? There's the within and the between. There's how someone is erotically wired. I think of that as sort of the erotic blueprint, right? And then there's the interpersonal, how they impact each other. I kind of think of that as the sexual script. So what we do is we deconstruct both. And that's where you pull in all the sex therapy interventions like dual control model, all of these different things in sex therapy, the behavioral interventions. But then I process them through the EFT lens, which is what I was talking about earlier. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so what will people learn in this class?
Okay. Good question. So what we're going to do, the way I've developed the class, is I'm going to have an overview of the EFT model so that folks who've never even heard of EFT can really start to get a sense of how the model works, how the model of this roadmap that's been developed and researched, that have so many longitudinal studies that prove its efficacy. I'm going to review all of that. And then I'm going to go into a little talk about why this model works so well in cultivating greater sexual connection with partners, however many partners in the room. By the way, EFT is an awesome model to deal with consensual non-monogamy. It's I do it all the time. I work with consensual. I'm in New York City and I'm gay. I work with gay men often. That's something that you have to learn. So EFT is a great model to deal with consensual non-monogamy. So then we'll get into that. And then with EFT, there's 3 stages, right? There's what we call, stage 1 is de-escalation. Stage 2 is restructuring the relationship. Stage 3 is consolidation. So then I'm going to break it down and apply those 3 stages to sex, right? There's the relational negative cycle. There's the sexual negative cycle. And for people who love each other, they are linked up. And so we have to deconstruct all of that. And then I'm going to really deconstruct and help folks see how they can apply sex therapy behavioral interventions that we all use every day, but apply it kind of like what I was talking about earlier, apply it through the EFT lens. Because I really feel it gives these interventions more traction. So, and the thing that I love about this training, I've been recording my couples for like 10 years. My colleague Zoya Simihotskaya, who's a trainer in EFT, she and we shared a wall at one point. And we were, it was a beautiful time because we were all learning about this. And we were, oh man, I got a great tape of this couple doing this. And so I have a whole host of tapes that I use to illustrate what I'm talking about. And these are real couples. These are not, they're not actors. They're real couples who, very graciously have agreed to let me use them for helping people train in the model. So I'm going to be using lots of videos to illustrate what I'm teaching.
Excellent. And so for people that maybe aren't coming to the class, what are like 1 or 2 things that, tips you can give them, takeaways that people in the class are going to get to either get people excited about wanting to take the class or to just give them something they can use? Okay.
So I think the first takeaway is if what I just shared resonates at all, couples therapy is challenging. It is challenging. There's so much going on in the room, and we have to make sense of it. And the beautiful thing about EFT, it is a clearly defined roadmap. It has been, Sue Johnson started it in the 80s, and now all these very smart people have been applying. The model has been refined, and it is a clearly defined roadmap where you'll be able to make sense of what's going on in the room. And then you'll be able to slow it down and help them start to feel into the underbelly of what's occurring. So that's one takeaway, because I'm just really excited about the model and how it applies to sex.
Yeah.
The other thing, and this is something that I'm really looking at right now, as we evolve in this field, we're always evolving, we're always growing, we're always learning. And one of the things that I'm seeing, I'm learning, and there's this whole conversation around attachment and differentiation. Well, it's important to remember that a key trait of a secure bond, right, in what's called in attachment theory, what's a secure bond? A key trait in a secure bond is that partners are differentiated. So what I'm learning with respect to sex is, I'm really seeing this now. For couples who are more emotionally estranged, that couple, they've lost each other, and they come in after 20 years of, not really cultivating any kind of connection. And finally, often it's the empty nest for whatever reasons, right? They come in. What I see is attachment theory. And let's say they want to work on sex. You're going to work on the relation. You're working on the relational cycle. You're working on the sexual cycle, simultaneously. What I see is that attachment theory and the way EFT has operationalized attachment theory, it really helps those couples that have lost each other, because it kind of fires up the longings that are underneath that. But for couples who are fused, right? For these couples who are meshed, where it feels like there's one person, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where you have to go up the differentiation channel. Now, differentiation totally applies to EFT, but that's where I'll kind of start to deepen, right? Because you need two people to generate erotic charge. You do, right? One person, we're two individuals coming together to have an experience with each other, right? You need two people in the room. So, EFT is, one of the really cool things about EFT is we confront through validation. You have to confront, right? We have to confront. We have to find a way to confront, but we confront through validation. So once I get them a felt sense of like what's going on there, then I start going in with things like, it is really hard to stay in this place where you are so different. Can we talk more about that? Right? And they're like, right, but you have to go in there, especially with sex.
Yep.
Especially with sex and the relational cycle too. We're not one person, we're two people.
Yep.
Yeah. So those are my two takeaways.
Get lost. Do you find that happens more in younger or older adults, or same?
Well, every generation has its own sort of culture to it. I think I see emotional estrangement and enmeshed in every generation. But culturally, you have to feel into, right, how this person, what lives inside them, emotionally and sexually. So every couple's different. Yeah. Every couple's different, Well, because then that's when you get into, the different attachment styles and all of that. Right.
Well, I'm really excited about this class. So thank you for taking the time to talk today. And we hope to see everybody there.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel. I'm really excited about it.